In the final years of World War II, one machine struck fear into the hearts of Allied forces. The Tiger II, also known as the King Tiger. A monster of steel, firepower, and German engineering, it was the most powerful tank of its time. But how did this legendary war machine come to life? And why did it disappear just as quickly as it emerged? The Tiger II, also known as the Königstiger, or King Tiger, was the brainchild of Nazi Germany's ambitious tank program. Its development began in 1942, as German commanders realized they needed a tank that could counter the new Soviet T-34 and IS-2 heavy tanks. The task of designing this war machine was given to two of Germany's top engineering companies, Henschel and Porsche. Henschel and Porsche each submitted a prototype for testing in 1943. While Porsche's design was innovative, it had serious mechanical flaws. Ultimately, the German High Command chose Henschel's version, and production of the Tiger II began in January 1944 at the Henschel factory in Kassel, Germany. By mid-1944, the Tiger II was ready for battle. Armed with a devastating 88mm KWK-43L71 gun and nearly 150 mm of frontal armor, it was the most powerful tank of its time. Germany built a total of 492 units between January 1944 and March 1945. But due to material shortages and constant Allied bombings, production never reached the numbers Hitler had hoped for. The Tiger II first saw combat in July 1944 during the Battle of Normandy. With its thick armor and devastating 88mm KWK-43 gun, it was a nightmare for Allied forces. Unlike any tank before it, the Tiger II could destroy enemy vehicles from over 2 kilometers away. Building such a beast wasn't cheap. Each Tiger II cost nearly 300,000 Reichsmarks, a massive sum at the time. It required enormous resources, thousands of man-hours, expensive materials, and highly skilled labor. In total, only 492 were ever built due to resource shortages. Despite its strength, the Tiger II faced major challenges. It was heavily used during the Battle of the Bulge in late 1944 and into 1945 in Eastern Europe. But Germany's supply lines were collapsing, and fuel shortages crippled the mighty tank. Many were abandoned, not destroyed. By May 1945, Germany was in ruins. The last operational Tiger IIs were used to defend Berlin, but with no supplies, no reinforcements, and no fuel, the end was near. Many were captured or destroyed by their own crews to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. The Tiger II was officially decommissioned after the war, its reign of terror brought to an end. After the war, the remaining Tiger IIs became prized war trophies. The United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, and France all seized Tiger IIs to study their advanced engineering. The U.S. Army captured several units, including one in perfect condition, which was shipped to the Aberdeen Proving Ground for testing. American engineers analyzed the Tiger II's armor, weaponry, and mechanics, using the knowledge to improve their own tank designs. While they admired its power, they also noted its flaws: high fuel consumption, unreliable engines, and excessive weight, making it impractical for prolonged use. Ultimately, the U.S. decided not to replicate the Tiger II's design, but instead focused on mass-producing more reliable tanks. The Tiger II was feared for good reason. Its 150 mm frontal armor made it nearly invulnerable to most Allied weapons, and its gun could eliminate enemies before they even saw it. Many Allied tank crews would rather flee than fight a King Tiger head-on. The Tiger II was a nightmare on the battlefield, but it was not invincible. While most standard Allied tanks struggled to penetrate its thick armor, there were a few that could stand a chance. One of the most effective counters was the Soviet IS-2 heavy tank. Armed with a massive 122 mm gun, it was one of the few tanks that could punch through the Tiger II's frontal armor at close range. The American M26 Pershing was also introduced late in the war to counter heavy German tanks. Its 90 mm cannon wasn't as powerful as the IS-2's gun, but it could penetrate the Tiger II's side and rear armor. One of the most famous encounters happened during the Battle of Cologne, where an M26 Pershing successfully destroyed a Tiger Wurst, proving that newer Allied tanks could match German armor. But sometimes, tanks weren't enough. The Allies also used powerful anti-tank weapons, like the British 17-pounder gun, which was mounted on the Sherman Firefly. This modified Sherman was one of the few medium tanks that could reliably take on the Tiger II. Similarly, American tank destroyers like the M36 Jackson were armed with 90 mm guns capable of damaging the King Tiger's side armor. Despite these counters, the Tiger II was still incredibly tough to destroy. Many were abandoned due to mechanical failures rather than being knocked out in battle. The most effective way to defeat them wasn't always firepower. It was cutting off their fuel and supply lines. As the war came to an end, the few remaining Tiger IIs made their final stands in Germany. Many were abandoned or destroyed to avoid capture. However, some fell into Allied hands. The United States in particular transported Tiger IIs back home for testing. One of these, still fully operational, was studied at Fort Knox and later displayed as a museum piece. The captured tanks allowed the U.S. to understand the weaknesses of German armor and develop more efficient, cost-effective tank designs for the future. Even though the Tiger II was a monster in battle, it was also a reminder that brute strength alone doesn't win wars. Strategy, resources, and reliability do. The United States tested at least 2 captured Tiger IIs at Aberdeen Proving Ground and Fort Knox. These tests helped American engineers understand the tank's design, while confirming that their own vehicles, like the M26 Pershing, were a better long-term choice for modern warfare. Though the Tiger II was ultimately a failure, its legacy endures. It was a symbol of German engineering brilliance and the desperation of a crumbling empire. Even today, it stands as a testament to the terrifying power of war machines. Would you have wanted to face a Tiger II in battle?